everyone, welcome back. It's Uncle Destiny here with you, and it's time to get the readings done for the month of May and seeing what's happening. We're going to have a new moon that's going to be happening on the 4th, and this is the season of spring, so hopefully everyone's dealing with their allergies well, but especially about the aspect of birth and bringing new energy into the world. So let us see what the ancestors have to say about all of that. All right, we've thrown the bones, and here's what we've got. The spread itself is actually kind of, in some ways, sparse, but it's also very spread out, so there's a lot of moving parts. It's almost kind of reminds me of what those of us who deal with allergies, are dealing with right now with the massive diffusion of pollen and multiple different types of pollen that are out in the air at the moment. So as you can see, this time we only have 2 of our main bones as opposed to 3. So this one is going to be about home. This one is going to be about, I want to say family, but I'm also getting the feeling it's relationship. And the thing about relationship is that it's not just the physical relationships you have with the people around you. It's also the relationships you have with nature, the relationships you have with the work you're doing. It is the relationships you're having with your purpose in the world. There's multiple relationships at play at any given time that have an effect and influence on how we are dealing with and responding to the world. From the micro relationships, which is usually things like how we're dealing with our pets, how we're dealing with the plants that we have within our home, to the macro, which is what we're dealing with the governments that run our particular countries, or how we are living and breathing in the world itself. Are we in a more polluted place? Are we doing everything possible to have a more clean water source? All of these are relationships that are at play all the time. Some are having a greater effect than others. Now, that's what I'm sensing with this bone here, and there's a lot more support that's coming around there. But I think this is also why we happen to have the quartz piece here. And remember, this is about the solidity of memory, of time, of the past. And with that solidity and the crystalness of it, we can go back and look at it. It's that moment trapped in time. And it's also about assessing all of those relationships that are ongoing in time itself. Because all of those relationships that we've got going here are also in our memory. And depending on how we are viewing it, we're either seeing it as a positive thing or a negative thing. But either way, relationships are at play, and relationships are going to be very much a focus in this next month. And again, it's not just love relationships. It's all relationships that you have. Good, bad, and indifferent. All right? So we had some that went off the reading surface. I'm going to come over here to the shell, and we've got it. In this case, it is flipped on the inside. So again, this is about, when we have the shell turned on the inside, it's about the internal. It's about things that are going on within ourselves, as well as what nature is going to be dealing with. And I think this is also feeds back into what's going on here with the relationship one. It's about how are we taking those relationships that we have, and are we processing them within ourselves to make sure that we're functioning in a healthy place with them, not let alone also being able to make sure that the relationships are ones that we know how we are dealing with and pacing ourselves with. There's a lot of things that go on in the macro or larger world that we don't feel like we have much control over. So how are we pacing ourselves to deal with that relationship? Are we letting that get too much power within our lives? And if so, how are we balancing that? So and those are going to be internal things. The other element too is a reminder that depending on the situation we're dealing with, depending on that experience and how long it's been happening, it's going to take time. I repeat this. It's going to take time to change that system. It's about and reprogram our nervous system, reprogram our spiritual system, reprogram our body to be able to deal with whatever that new stressor is. And that is ultimately always going to be an internal aspect that we have to work on. So let's go back over to our main bone here. This one, I believe I said, was going to be family. No, it was actually, sorry, that one's home. And what's going on here with home, it's very insular, it's okay. It doesn't have a lot going on, so it's going to be something I'm not going to say it's going to be in cruise control, but it is something where you're not going to have to put a lot of focus, but it is something you're going to be aware of. Now, if you notice, we have the broken, one part of the broken rib bone here, and it's crossing under the support bone. So there's an aspect of home is going to be supportive in its own way. It is going to generate its own stressors. So you might be, with the fact that this is spring, so you might be just spring cleaning. So you're clearing out a lot of that old dust, everything that's settled, trying to create a better vibe for the place. And like I said, it's going to be something that you're going to focus on, but it's not going to be the heaviest focus. And you're going to find that space that you're going to need to be able to deal with what's going over here in the relationship standpoint. As we come down, we've got some more of the support bones, but here we do have the other broken rib bone, and it's here, and it's counterbalanced with the copper piece, which is about spirit and your spiritual connection and the spiritual energy and transmission of that, which is also connected with a bunch of support bones. So there's going to be some issues with our spiritual connection. There's stuff that's going to be either the spirits aren't pleased with us or we're not pleased with the spirits. But again, this is a relationship. So how do you negotiate a relationship with spirit? Especially when one or two, you or it, or both of you mutually have grievances. Nothing is going to move forward if your spirit is not willing, because it is part of the energy source that moves the world. So it's about trying to figure out how can we be more supportive, how can we deal with the things that are causing us difficulty, how do we work with that relationship. If the relationship that you have with people around you is contentious, is difficult, guess what? You're having that same relationship with spirit. So if you want a more peaceful relationship, what needs to be addressed and changed? Because you have the power to make change. You have the power to have a better relationship. But it means you may have to sacrifice something. It means you may have to give something up. So consider that. Now, we've got a few bones here out on the edge. And in this case, these are coming in for June. And I feel it's going to be much more about having, it's going to be bringing that support. Because if you address what's going on over here, these bones are going to be coming in to help you. This is about bringing in those positive influences, those positive energy, because this is acting like a magnet. But you've got to resolve what's going on here so that the magnet is pulling these things in closer and faster. But support will be there. New ideas will be there. It's important for that. So we should be wrapping up with our last piece, which is the dice. And we have, again, the number 12. And number 12 deals with endings, healing, closure, and spirituality. So again, we are dealing with the aspects of endings, healing, closure, and spirituality. And so if we look at that from the standpoint of relationships, if we look at that from the standpoint of keeping of how we're dealing with our home, if we're dealing with that aspects of spirit, of our internal work, and of our memories, there are memories that have come to their end. There are memories about endings that we need to process. There are memories about healing, about how we've offered healing, how we've received healing, how we've witnessed healing that needs to be done and looked at. And these are relationships that are at play. There is closure, which means, and it's how very similar to endings, but in this case, closure means we accept what has gone on. We acknowledge the changes in relationships, the changes in relationships that have caused endings. We've acknowledged that and accept that some people need to walk away from our lives, and they've made the choice to walk away from our lives. That some projects have ended and need to be let go of. But ultimately, we also come back to spirituality, because the spiritual component of an ending of a relationship can take longer than a physical one. Because, and let me just say that again. The speed at which something happens is different on the physical level, on the mental level, and on the spiritual level. So if we're dealing with endings, if we're dealing with healing, and we're dealing with closures, and as they relate to the spiritual level, they may be happening on a slower time scale than what is physically happening. And so it's about bringing those back into understanding that that healing is going on. It's just going to take time, and you need to give yourself time. You need to be gentle with yourself. And that's another aspect of cleaning out the house. Because if you're cleaning out the house, you're making that space within not just your home, but within yourself, to be able to have spirit and invite something else in. Because if you're too cluttered and you refuse to end, you refuse to have closure, you can't heal, and you can't let something else in. The universe abhors a vacuum, and it will fill that vacuum with whatever it is, good, bad, or indifferent. So if we want to fill it with something that is good, or maybe indifferent, we have to be able to be willing to open up that and guide that process in, so the universe just doesn't fill it with whatever is possible. So that is the reading for May. This is Uncle Destiny on behalf of the ancestors, the Orishas, Loas, gods, and the creator of all things. May you have a blessed May. May you heal. May you love. And may you be wise. Ashe.